All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Core Unit Launchpad session number 6, I believe. So today we have the MakerDAO Shop, so MDS 001. And I'm here joined by a bunch of people interested in this proposal. And from the two guys proposing this are Coulter Mulligan and Mike Porcaro. And yeah, they will be explaining a bit what they are trying to achieve and hopefully answering all our questions. Mike, Coulter, thanks for being with us. If you want to
Thanks
give
for
a
having
quick
us.
introduction on who you guys are and what you're proposing.
Sure. So I'm Mike Porcaro. I currently work for the foundation. I oversee the marketing and communications function. So kind of anything that's really public facing related to communicating about updates on the foundation. In the olden days, that was partnerships, etc. Now it's really more just sort of about kind of current status of the project. And so that really goes across all marketing channels, right? Including partnering with Coulter and our awesome events team and a bunch of other marketing experts to make sure that people are aware of us when we're at events, including swag, which is what we're here for today. And I'll hand it over to Coulter, who's actually like the swag expert. I'm here to provide assistance, but he's the real expert.
Mike just reaps the rewards of getting all the swag, being one of the first people to get all the swag. Yeah, my name's Coulter. As Mike said, head up marketing, and as part of that function, handling events and therefore the swag at events. We thought we'd put this core unit forward because we thought it would be a hopefully straightforward. I hope whoever just fell down the stairs is okay. We thought it'd be a hopefully straightforward initiative because we've been seeing a lot of people asking about Maker Swag over the years, how they can get it if they're not at events, different types of swag. You know, one of the most popular, I'm not stable, but my die is t-shirt, seems to come across our Twitter almost every single day, or somebody asking about it. And we also work with a bunch of partners or potential partners or influential type people that might benefit from having swag or enjoy having it to show it on their channels in some capacity. So we wanted to put this together, put it to the community, see what they thought. And I think with that, I'll try and share my screen without butchering this.
While Coulter's pulling that up, maybe we talk a little bit about why swag, why merchandise is important. Kind of, it's, in addition to it's just fun to have a cool t-shirt, that's actually a little bit of a Trojan horse, right? People get excited about the stickers, the t-shirts, the hats, whatever it is we may give you, right? We were reading the comments, baby onesies, maybe if that's what people really want. But the idea here being that it's a phenomenal way to drive brand awareness, and it's a phenomenal way to drive engagement. So people use this as a way to showcase support for a project, and even as gifts to people who are fans of the project, right? It's just a nice way to show support. It's proven strategically to help drive engagement. And so is this our number one marketing lever? No, that's why we as foundation members didn't set one up yet. But it is a slam dunk. It's easy. And we know there's a ton of opportunity out there because people are hungry for it. And it does add value beyond just, put a sticker on my computer. Again, it's brand awareness and it's engagement, which are critical. That's how you want people to be thinking about you as a part of their everyday kind of life. So that's a little bit behind why we think it's a little bit more than just, fun stickers and t-shirts. And we think there's a potential here to for no upfront ask, split any wins or or profits that come off of it with the foundation, or excuse me, with the DAO. And I'll pipe down.
Is my screen showing as it should be?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So the background we just mentioned, we've been known for having great swag at events in the past. Our booths are usually flooded on day one to the point where we're usually the first project to run out of swag because everybody comes after it first. So kind of expanding it on that. So people have been asking for the online shop, as mentioned. Now we have the opportunity to give that to them while staying true to the decentralized ethos of Maker. By that, we mean it's a decentralized shop running on IPFS and using Origin's D shop to do so.
And you can pay and die, which is not as easy as you would think to offer.
That too. So, I mean, Mike touched on this a little bit, but the point being, what are we trying to get out of the shop? We want a dedicated official destination where the community can purchase swag and showcase their support of Maker and Die, and thereby improving awareness and engagement. So if they're wearing it at an event, if they're wearing it on the street, little by little, that increases that awareness and engagement. It would be operated by myself and Mike, but absolutely, and this is critical, we want participation, suggestions, feedback from the community as much as possible. I mean, in terms of designs, in terms of, I mean, it runs the gamut. We're open to hearing any sort of improvement we can get added to make this as beneficial as possible. And then the shop will cover costs and hopefully generate profit for the protocol. So with that said, we have sort of we've been testing a proof of concept internally, just create a basic shop with logos on a few items, just to make sure it all works. We are asking to use the shop.makerdao.com domain. And then basically part of this strategy, like I said, was to kind of bulletproof the concept, make sure that all different types of credit cards, locations, international shipping, that sort of thing functioned as we wanted it to. At the moment, we feel pretty comfortable with where it is. That being said, should this launch publicly and we see a whole bunch of orders come in, I would think the first 30 to 60 days will be all hands on deck in terms of making sure we're troubleshooting and that sort of thing. But in terms of the quality, in terms of the product themselves, we've selected things that we feel echo the Maker sort of, the quality that Maker provides over time. Like, these are not, I don't want to cuss on a call, but these are not so great quality garbage products. There we go. They feel good. They wear well, and the logo doesn't rub off in the wash after your first wash. And then so with that, phase two, shortly after a public launch, we sort of broaden out products. I put sandals in there, should that really kind of shows the scope we can offer, but going bigger with promotion, so discount codes, a public announcement via the blog, or give influencers VIP codes or something like that, driving them to the shop and sort of increasing the awareness that way, and then getting into, this is really kind of where we'd like it to go: community-led designs, limited edition products, bulk orders for Maker events. So should the Maker community be having a booth or a major event at DevCon or something like that, being able to give out t-shirts to everybody in the audience or something like that. We want to be able to supply that. And then any sort of community promotions or contest prizing that is taking place via the community can obviously tap us for those needs. And then there's also, we sort of explore this idea of a charitable arm as well. So maybe like a one-off, call it a t-shirt that's priced at 100 DAI, but 80% of that goes to charity, and that Maker decides. So there's sort of like there's a world where this becomes sort of a charitable piece too.
Yeah, I would just jump in to say there's a lot of really cool stuff that that can happen here, right? Like, as the core units fill out, you'd be able to do social media campaigns, right? Or you'd be able to do community campaigns where the swag is not just a part of like a benefit, like a gift for participation, but it could be part of a scavenger hunt. There's all sorts of like marketing tools that where we could partner with other elements and other parts or other core units to sort of, again, drive this awareness, drive this engagement, and get more people in more merch, which again, when you're comparing it against smart contract developers, it feels maybe a little less valuable. But what I will tell you is 20 plus years in marketing, engage, like as I said before, a broken record, like engagement where people are really taking it to heart and making it a part of their everyday life reaps benefits and rewards in the term, in sense of like more participation in the project, a little willingness to accept bumps. So if their die experience isn't great, or that, they're ride or die because they're having a good time, they're feeling comfortable repping you as a personal billboard. That's a big deal. And it's the kind of engagement lots of organizations want. We'd like to provide that for you guys, or for us, I guess.
And then I think this is the final slide, just budget. So we're not asking for any budget from the DAO, but should there be a need or want for like a specialized product, we use Gucci bathrobes with a DAI logo on it or something like that. That's currently outside of the scope. That would require additional budget. Should you guys want 100 Gucci robes for the next DevCon or something like that. But the profits would be a 50-50 share with the protocol. And then at the moment, I don't think it's been decided where the shop would be sending the protocol's profits at the moment. So that needs to be sorted as well. And I think that is, yeah. So it's next finalizing designs, setting the shop live, and getting you guys testing and sharing it and providing feedback for your experience. And that's it.
Yeah, I think the one last thing I would say is this really is predicated, so we don't really need to participate with the protocol. We could set up our own shop, but if we can get shop.makerdao.com and partner with you guys, it's a nice rev share and it can be official branded. I think that is a big deal for the customers that want to buy, this stuff. So that's really the ask. We're willing to do the work and the investment up front on our own, split what we get out of the deal for basically the right to the URL.
Great. Thank you, guys. Andrew, I think you have a question.
Well, this is regarding the, budgeting for your team. This is just, I was looking, Juan sent me your 4-unit proposal. I was looking over it before the call. I like this whole idea of no funding required from the DAO. It's all self-funded. I guess you guys figure out where the initial money comes from. I do think you guys should invest it a little bit, maybe a portion of the profits, 5-10% of them goes into vesting back to you. I think, the smart contracts team is doing something. It doesn't have to be quite as robust as 1,000 maker each per se, but I think it will be, you guys are obviously not going anywhere, but it'll be more in alignment for anyone that's a 4-unit to be getting some trickle of some kind of maker there,
Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll definitely can take that into consideration.
Maybe you modestly didn't want to propose it yourselves, but I think it's important to keep everyone incentivized. I know you guys will still remain incentivized going forward, but let's say you grow the team, there's more people, right? You'll want them to feel part of it, and if there's a trickle of maker to them, they'll probably want to stick around a little bit.
That's a good idea. Yeah, thank you for that.
Coulter and Mike, I have a question. Let's say that, I don't know, Nadia's team is organizing some kind of event, I don't know, Colombia next year or this year, and they need 100 t-shirts or something. Would that be like the retail price, or would they have access to a special price, or we'll see it on a case-by-case basis? How would that work?
It's a good question. Go ahead, Mike.
I was like, we'd be able to what we would do in that case is let her know what our cost is, and we would negotiate. We would create sort of a wholesale price, but we'd be transparent. So she'd see what it costs us. And using this example, we would add, a small amount for profit that would be split between the protocol and this shop. And it wouldn't quite be the retail price. It would aim to be competitive. Now, what I would say is a lot of this stuff is we're handheld by we're hand tied by the cost of our vendors. And so that would be up for each core unit or each project owner to decide if they liked the price or if they wanted to go with somebody locally and go through the design process and all of these things. Or if they go, for a couple points more, they can just take the order and it shows up where I need it. That would come down to each core unit, but we would absolutely be able to offer sort of a inside price if it was going to be a bulk deal.
Does anyone have any questions before I keep shooting?
Yeah, I had one, I guess. Obviously, like very excited about the core unit, like love the swag, and like everyone else, just want to see more of it. Curious, like what it kind of means to you guys, I guess, to be a core unit. Like further down the line, more ideas for merchandise come. Like, do you see like trying to incorporate with them? Do you see like staying independent? I was just curious, kind of what your philosophy around that might be.
Coulter, you.
So at the moment, like I've been with, Mike and I both have been at this point with Maker for 3 years. We love Maker. Like this is our way of kind of giving back after the foundation has dissolved and wanting to like maintain kind of being a part of it and being part of the community. Should the opportunity arise that the shop expands into somebody else sees what we're doing that's within the Maker ecosystem, like potentially like a partner or something, it sort of like expands into like a DeFi swag shop or something like that. Awesome. But at the moment, like the plan is just supply Maker. And I think for the first, pick your timeline, 6 to 12 months, that's really going to be, there's going to be plenty to go, like there's going to be plenty of work to do in just that time anyway. Let alone thinking about any sort of expansion. But when it comes to, like I said, community driven products or things like that, in terms of like additional merchandise, as you mentioned, like absolutely, like we quote unquote like owned swag at events. We were the one everyone wanted to be a part of, and we want to do the exact same thing from an online perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would echo it to say like this is a fun way for us to leverage something that we are passionate about and have a successful skill set in to still contribute and stay connected to a project that we love. Like just more broadly, this is probably an overshare, but we were talking about like, as the foundation goes away, like, oh yeah, what am I doing next? And I kept thinking, I don't want to really go anywhere else. I don't know what the exact next step is. And this is a great way for me to stay at least immediately engaged and involved in the project from like a community perspective, right? And I don't know, I'm super vested. Also, I didn't come from a background of like degens and crypto people. So of my friends, I'm like the one weird corporate guy who's into crypto, and I've got a real vested interest to show all those guys how fucking wrong they were, and I'm gonna make us the coolest project we can be. So as a little bit of a joke, but truly, I think it's just a great way to stay connected. I hope that answers the question.
Guys, I hear that you're speaking a lot about profit in the proposal. So let's say a t-shirt costs $10 to produce. What would be your suggested retail price? So how much profit would be looking at?
We're going to benchmark against what other projects are like. We'll basically benchmark against the rest of the market to find a price that makes sense to the consumer. Let's start there. I mean, there's not a lot of benefit of a 50-50 split if nobody's buying our stuff because we price them at 100 DAI each. Everything is a starting point. Right now, it looks like, I don't want to commit to it because it depends so much on like the quality of the t-shirt, the volume that you're buying, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say, in the $20 range, plus or minus. I don't know, Coulter, keep me honest.
No, that's about right. Depending on the shirt, depending on the material, et cetera, there's probably, like, I'm loath to give out a number because there's so many variables in it. But if it's like $15-16 to make, probably a $20 t-shirt.
And if this moves forward, what we can come back with is provide people with a strategy of like what items what I would imagine will happen is there are going to be sort of like, we will have a range of prices. And there's ones where we can regularly go through on a loss leader where it's like, hey, we're pushing, right, the link to the coffee mug. We're going to give, for the first 6 months, because everyone's going to need a lot of coffee to learn up and stay on top of governance for the Maker project. Well, we can cut a deal. So we're selling them at basically cost. right? And then we can kind of flexible and move stuff around. There will for sure be things that cost more because the product itself costs more, and maybe we're applying more design to it, right? And we're creating a little bit of scarcity there. A t-shirt NFT that's not a real world NFT that you can put in your laundry, but we can provide more detail on that. But the idea is bigger picture to make sure that there's stuff that is available in quality at all price points, so everyone can feel jumped in.
Yeah, the way I was asking, and this is a little bit answering to Andrew's comment in the chat, is that I've usually been warned against going into partnerships where you share the profit and not the revenue, because it's extremely easy to just make up costs. So potentially you guys could say, yeah, we need to invest on this, we want to put a store on this, we want to pay ourselves salaries, we want to and then there's no more profit to share, right? So even if you say instead of 50% of the profit, we'll share, I don't know, 20% of the revenue, at least it's a number that can be very easily measured, and it's harder to manipulate.
Sure. I mean, we're totally open to that. If structurally, if there's this kind of feedback, we're open to all that. We really just sort of did a 50-50 split because we thought it was the cleanest. Understand, of course, we can pick expenses off of profit, so I totally understand the point. But much like the recommendation to add a little stake in the game for us, a little bit of equity, I mean, I'm definitely glad to go back and take another look at what the numbers look like and how they sort out. This is phenomenal feedback, because short of Greg DePrisco continually telling us that he wants cowboy hats, we didn't get a lot of engagement off of the other posts that we put out there. So thank you for the conversation.
Any other questions, guys? Andrew?
Oh, well. So, I mentioned it a little bit above. I think Coulter would like this. How would you feel about, Maker hosting some events? Have it be like a die-hard drinks type of event where everyone gets their die upon entering, and you buy all your drinks with die somehow from your wallet. Bring all the biggest names and make a nice event once the lockdowns are over. We're like, maybe.
I mean, I think we have to do that, right?
And you'll have to line up with whoever or whatever core unit owns your events, but I think it would be cool to do that. Swag events.
Yeah. Just quickly, LFW has a question in the chat about shipping. As of right now, from the internal testing, we've shipped worldwide. The only issue is occasionally customs stop something. Like we've shipped a couple things to Argentina and they got stopped in customs. So that will need to be sorted on sort of like a case-by-case basis, but shipping is worldwide.
I have a question, or rather a comment about the website, shop@makerdao.com. You want this website permanently? Some in the community might not be entirely comfortable with that. You could turn that thing into anything. So if it has the MakerDAO.com name on it, I think a lot of people want to own it. Or so you could have the rights to the site for like a number of years, like 10 for all I care. But that the name shop@makerdao.com belongs to MakerDAO.
Correct. Yes. The apologies if that wasn't clear. The idea would be that our shop would have exclusive rights to it, like through the permission of whichever domain ends up owning MakerDAO.com, or or controlling it, I should say. It's the DAI Foundation, I believe, that owns the domain or controls the domain, but then there'll be a core unit that is responsible for it. And what we're suggesting, or what we're asking for, is the exclusive rights to it based on a time frame and on parameters that are acceptable to the project.
All right. I have a question, rather a comment on the 50-50 profit sharing. Part of the what you're selling here is that the community does not really have to get involved. But with a profit sharing, someone at some point needs to go to your books and look into your numbers. Just suggesting, would it be possible to add a fixed fee? Let's say you sell a T-shirt for $20, and then $1 or $2 or something like that is just a fixed fee to MakerDAO.
Yeah, I mean, I think
because then you would just have to set up the website with a counter. It would be easier for everybody.
Truly, I think that's something that we can come back with. I think what it would bring is that it means, we picked 50-50 because it felt cleanest, but maybe it is like a per unit fee or price that goes directly to the project. And maybe it's just coming down to like what numbers feel appropriate. Does 10 or 20% feel like the right number? This is where we'd love to gauge the folks in the community around what feels like an appropriate split.
Realistically, it might not come down to 10% or 15% or 20%. It might come down to the numbers the number that is easiest to check.
No, fair enough.
There's also a world that where who's ever selected treasurer or whatever marketing core unit or strategic comms core unit is voted in, like work together and we show how what the budget and books look like. And so as a verification. So I'm not saying we should do that instead, but as another option.
So yeah, there's some topics that I would like to discuss, especially concerning the exclusivity and a potential stop of activities. And this brings me to one central point that we want to touch upon later, but I'm not entirely sure. I think I'm breaking up. Let me know if it becomes unhearable. But something that I wanted to say is that while this might sound like a great idea, or maybe it is, I don't know if, personally, I am in measure of actually evaluating this, and I'm almost sure that most maker holders don't want to, right? So that's why I saw this more of as a kind of like as an agreement between some core unit that deals with these type of things, and they can discuss with you guys and potentially other people and saying like, hey, this is great. We're doing the due diligence. We evaluate these guys. So it's more of we are the same way we are delegating to Seb for real world assets. Like I don't think that anyone has the bandwidth to start evaluating all the real world assets that we onboard. The same thing for this, right? Well, this could be great, and during this call, it sounds like a great deal. Maybe it's not, or maybe you guys are on the losing end, right? Maybe maybe you're getting like a really bad deal and the DAO is actually winning, but I don't know if we can judge this or the maker holders can judge this. So this is something that concerns me a bit.
So the thinking being that this doesn't have to be a core unit, but is more of a relation or like a negotiation between whichever core unit ends up being responsible for the web page and us.
Exactly.
All right. Who's that? Do you guys know?
I kind of asked Nadia and Kathleen in the forum. I'm not entirely sure if that would fall within their mandate, or potentially you guys could start a core unit with a broader scope that will evaluate and give. I mean, right now there's kind of like a conflict of interest, I guess. But I think that, and again, this might be the wrong answer. Maybe my approach is wrong, but I feel that this is something kind of too small for the maker holders to be voting on. It feels more like a deal that could be renewed or not, compared to a core unit with an overarching mandate.
There's multiple ways that this can go, and I think as core units continue to get voted in, it'll probably become clearer. That being said, there's no world, I would imagine, where we're not consistently or constantly working with any core units that are in charge of marketing, or an event core unit that pops up, or a developer, whatever, pick your, like a smart contracts core unit, and they want to recruit other developers and they need swag to do stuff. Like, we can work across a multitude of other core units that don't just fall under marketing, include, and beyond that, like Bourbon sends out swag packs all the time to new community members. Like, there's a lot of different places like it that you know, we can fall into, then, and sort of, we just want to be that resource for everyone. And whether that makes sense to fold us under a marketing core unit, you know, at this point, considering how early it is, I probably don't agree that that's needed at the moment. But as things grow and get, you know, we move further along, I think it's possible. Absolutely.
Yeah. It also comes, yeah, I agree. I think that there's a world where we can work. I mean, the way that it currently works with swag, right, from the foundation, is we were working with internal groups, internal facing groups and external facing groups. So there is a need. I think it would solve a problem for folks all across the project, to the point of like, is this too small? Or projects like this, are we setting a precedent where you're going to get nickeled and dimed on every single small project that wants to use one piece of the protocol? That's a fair administrative call, right? Like, that's fundamental, that needs to be sorted beyond us. We can be flexible either way. I think there's also, just for us, a sense of, we're ready to go. Like, let's just fucking go. I mean, again, the right way. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but really more like this, we could turn the shop on and just hit it. So there's a little bit of like, maybe we're being a little too, what's the word I want to say, like aggressive, and trying to figure out how we can slot in to existence.
No, for the record, guys, I really like the idea. I don't want to rain on your parade. It's more, I'm not sure if this is the right kind of conversation to be having. That's more what I meant. It feels more like a smaller-ish thing, and unless you tell me that you guys are expecting millions in revenue, and then maybe we should be discussing this as something more strategic, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, part of it is we're in this primordial stew of everyone trying to figure out what goes where. I'll be brutally honest, when we were setting, like, when we were talking about this, like before the core unit process was created, this has been in our back pocket to set up. We were talking to people about, like, do we set it up through a core unit? Is it a MIP? What do we do here? And so we're, you know, we think this makes sense. We don't believe we're wasting people's time, but it's right. Like, the org is going to right size itself. And I totally get that it might be, hey, this is below a threshold. I guess for us, it would be.
Mike, I was trying to unmute someone that was generating echo, and I think I muted you.
Hi there. Can I slip in a question here, because it might really pertain to this core unit, not core unit question? And that's about intellectual property. So I guess my questions are, number one, where does the like MakerDAO logo, existing swag artwork and stuff, where does that IP reside now? And secondly, anything that's cooked up for this, whether your relationship to the DAO would on whether on who owns the designs, you know, should any ties be severed in the future, you know, where would those designs for t-shirts, mugs, whatever, where would they go? Because if it's classified as a work for hire, it would reside with whatever legal entity is doing business on behalf of MakerDAO. Whereas if you are, if it's just a straight up licensing agreement, it would probably reside with the artist, though of course it would also include intellectual property that belongs to MakerDAO. So I think these are worth thinking about, particularly when thinking about the relationship this project would have. Anyway, maybe you can speak to that.
Mike, you're muted.
as we currently understand it, the logos and trademarks are controlled by the DAI Foundation. And as we also understand it, those are all open source. So unless and it would be denied in the event of people using them for inappropriate elements, right? And I believe, I'm not the DAI Foundation. I believe that ultimately it would have to be exceptionally inappropriate for them to remove the right to use the open source logos and trademarks. And so in that case, if it was designed by, like right now, we could go start a store using those rules. We could start a store and just not have it at shop.makerdao.com and would be fine to sell these items and make money off of those items, as I understand it. And so what we're really asking for, again, is access to the URL. I would imagine anything that's co-designed, there would be.
And it will access to the URL, which thereby makes it official and sort of like get the nod from the community that like, hey, this is our shop as a community. Which then in turn, like if you look for like crypto swag on Google or something, there are a zillion different like knockoff shops with old logos or logos that don't matter or whatever. Like this would be, we want this to be sort of like our community, the maker community, to point to this and be like, no, that's the one, that's the official shop. That's where you get all the good stuff. That's where you get the newest stuff. That's where you get, the official maker swag. As it pertains to, I think further in question, like community-led designs. I don't have like, I would put it to I don't have like the legal knowledge of like where that falls in terms of like, should ties be severed, where it goes. But I would imagine it's community, if it's a community design or presented by the community, it resides with the community after.
And to be fair, we're happy to, we can front the work with our attorneys to get the contracts drawn up to, so we can give the community folks or like whoever our collaborators are a heads up of what the relationship looks like. We would use industry standard and best practice as a basis.
I guess
the point I was trying to make, I'm sorry, the point I just, if I can finish it, I was going to make a little earlier around like, if this is the right thing for a core unit or if it needs to fit somewhere else, I think it will be cool as the project evolves to understand sort of what are the criteria, and to understand like, hey, don't, for lack of a better term, waste everyone's time by going down this path if it doesn't match these sort of, must be this tall to ride kind of stuff. I think maybe even if that's the outcome of this conversation, that could be the bigger win. And then we can sort out where our shop goes. If it turns out that this isn't the right thing for a core unit. We think it's, it's a good, and it's obviously valuable for the time, the discussion and the time, but we're open as members of the community to find out what, like, let's right size this thing. Go ahead.
Hi, can I come in again?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I guess the one concern that comes up to me, and perhaps this is easy to address, is that if the maker, logo intellectual property is open source, really this is like, this seems like this doesn't grant us control of messaging with the brand. But at the same time, association with us, the big thing that we're offering you is a competitive advantage, however big or small it may end up being with the use of the URL. Seems like perhaps it might be better for you to rent the URL from us rather than go through all this, and have a more at arm's length relationship rather than try to make this a core unit, since it doesn't grant us any additional messaging power. If anybody with an Etsy shop is free to set up their own swag. So it just seems like this should be maybe more transactional and just easier on everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting reflection, and definitely one that we kind of need to be thinking forward as we go forward. To kind of Juan's question about like size and scope, like that seems like a relevant, like, hey, should this be a core unit, should it not? I was wondering if you had any numbers of like revenue or profits from the time operating under the foundation. I don't know if that would even be relevant to this conversation or not, but
well, we never publicized it. It was always just internal sort of one-offs to test it. So that we never wrote a blog post externally. We never posted it on Twitter or anything like that. So getting a numbers like doesn't do any justice, because it was simply just 100 guys in the foundation testing it out, and ordering swag, whenever they wanted a t-shirt, or Nick Kunkel wanted a new flat brim hat.
That makes sense. Yeah, thanks. I mean, do you have any idea how big it could be? Anything to go off of? Like, what's your vision? I guess we'll start there.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't want to throw out a number. I would be happy to throw out a number after the first month and of this being public, because that's where you're able to get a gauge. There's probably going to be, I would imagine, some excitement as the whole community kind of rallies around it. The guys, and girls here on this call would probably get some, and we'd be able to get sort of like a high number there, and then be able to sort of gauge it after 30, 60 days.
I think once events start back up and core units are in place, and we start seeing if we're competitive with where people are going to get the swag that they use internally, or for different, if we become a vendor for them there, we would start to be able to get a normalized list of, or kind of like curve of what's actually going on.
Yeah, so I think that would be one of the things, Seth, is teaming up with Bourbon and working with him to do those welcome packages, as well as any other like quote unquote like influencer packages. Should a core unit want to work with influencers, like it's always nice to give them like sort of a nice box of swag and sort of introduce them to the brand that way, and as well as anybody else. You could imagine, I don't know, if Nadia is talking to XYZ bank for their growth thing, walking in with a whole bunch of like nice to have swag is and rather than business cards is also helpful to sort of set the tone too. So there are a lot of different ways it can be utilized.
I just want to jump in on some of the comments I'm seeing here. It really feels like the crux is this a core unit? Like we're kind of testing the limits on, is this kind of rising to the bar of being a core unit or not? And I would love guidance from you guys, or the kind of people who are more inside of the of governance in the community, of like, again, as I was saying earlier, how does a person know if it's worth pitching it as a CU or not? So any thoughts on that?
I guess it depends on how many whale friends you have, Mike, because at the end of the day, it's decentralized, and like the holders control what goes and what doesn't, right?
I guess.
So we try to establish frameworks and ideally reduce the mental overhead for maker holders, but that's as far as we can reach. And yeah, I don't know if as a maker holder I would like to be deciding every single deal that shows up. And again, it's probably a really good deal, and I'm looking forward to see this in the wild. But it's more of my concern is more of, should this be being voted by the maker holders? I guess We'll find out since you submitted it. We should find out soon.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I would just say is we did this because we didn't know the other way to get through. So I guess what I'm open, I reached out to Long, I believe is on the call, on a different topic of like actually earlier in going through this process of just like guidance from whoever provides guidance. If the objective of core units and governance is to get the appropriate people participating maximally, right? If there, again, if there's, you must be this high to ride, or some sort of guidance over like this does or does not constitute, like is appropriate or isn't appropriate for a core unit, that's helpful guidance, right? Because it could save everyone time. We can call up whoever's going to run the website, get our deal or not get our deal, and move forward. Because I think I'm saying that in the conversation here, there's a lot of like details around what the shop would look like, but then there also seems to be a core hang up for some folks around like if it's a core unit or not. And I think those are both really valid. And I would love to just sort of learn more about how do we navigate, for lack of a better term. Or it sounds like also what I'm hearing here is, well, put it out there, and if enough people care about it, they'll vote it in as a core unit or not. But then that leaves, to your point, Juan, like MKR voters are going to be paying attention to a bunch of, like, in some cases, like nitty gritty bullshit they don't care about. And in some cases, like shifts the world importance, and they're all equally weighted. That doesn't really, my guess is that's all going to kind of shake out as we evolve, right?
So there are different initiatives. The core unit MIP set is kind of green yet, or very not mature, I guess. So we're seeing and we're improving it. There are different core units being set up to actually help other core units and try to give it a better framework. But it's a super valid point. Like right now, anyone, I mean, governance, the maker holders can do whatever they want, right? So they can vote for anything. So I don't think it's up to a central, I don't know, authority or core unit to decide this, but it's more what goes and what doesn't. And if you do know enough whales to support your claim, then by all means, happy to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go find my whale Rolodex, I guess. But I mean, again, and we're not trying to slide in. I guess my point is we want to do it the right way and have the right relationship from jump. It's just I guess it sounds like, again, it's this primordial soup of like, everyone's trying to figure out what works where. And so
Yeah,
sounds like we're maybe the smallest one coming through, or the seemingly smallest project that's got people focused on it, but
I think
whatever works, we'll take it.
I think people will be understanding of stuff like this, right? Like, you know, if you get signed up as like a core unit now, like, and later on it turns out that it probably falls below the threshold for what makes sense as a core unit, then you know, I like to think people will be understanding, and they'll just get shuffled into a different structure, but will remain the same, right? Like,
Cool.
yeah, I think you're right. It is a bit up in the air at the moment, and hopefully it will start to kind of settle down and fall into.
Just to note on Paper's comment about not controlling the brand. I mean, that was myself and Mike's job, is to control the brand as part of the foundation, like branding, messaging, making sure things look right. This is like a way for, at least in terms of swag, to help control the brand. So there aren't Bourbon's not making t-shirts, Nadia's not making, you know, other t-shirts that are using an old logo or using a pink t-shirt with a unicorn on it, and then suddenly Uniswap's calling like, hey, we use a unicorn, like what are you guys doing? This is a way for people who have experience with branding Maker, to help control that and make sure that it stays, you know, with our eye on the ball.
Yeah, and also to a degree, decentralization means, I mean, you know, the fact of the matter is, unless whoever is going to come in as your core unit, everyone is going to go through them or your core unit on marketing and branding. Every single other core unit has to have all of their stuff approved by them. You won't have control over your brand. That's what decentralization, I mean, that's kind of what decentralization looks like to a degree, right? That's why people love centralization, is because you can get consistency. I think that's just part of what this model looks like.
Paper, I don't know if you want to jump in the mic to make any of the points that you're making in the chat, so it's in the recording. And yeah, feel free. But otherwise, Mio, I haven't asked the question that you posted in the forum. Do you want to?
Yeah, so can you hear me? Can you actually hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So I arrived late, so I apologize I just arrived like 5 minutes ago. So I'm sorry, but one question, which I think is related to what you were discussing the last 5 minutes, is what if we, let's say, vote for this core unit to be formed and to run, but we change our mind in, let's say, 1 year or 6 months, and what about your business? So would you accept to stop selling merchandising about Maker, or with a logo of Maker, or, you know, basically to stop the business or not? Or would you ask us, I don't know, a time frame like 6 months of notice before, you know, asking you to stop? Or yeah, basically that's the question.
Yeah, well, this is really about, because the trademarks and logos are open source, managed and owned through the DAI Foundation. The real crux of it would be access to shop.makerdao.com and being able to use official shop in our messaging, versus stopping making the merchandise unless it's exceptionally like violating their terms of the DAI Foundation. But to your point, I think it would be great, and this is part of what we can clarify in the ask, of like a 3 months or whatever the project is comfortable with. Standard 90-day sort of heads up that we're shutting you down and giving access, we're putting it up to bid and we're going to give somebody else access to, or like the official title would be appropriate. And again, pretty standard.
I think that does bring up a really good point, Mio, though, is that kind of the framework for a lot of these core units that we were thinking about was like, okay, well, they will have to approach the DAO every, 3, 6 months, a year, what have you, for a budget. But this proposal is kind of unique in that you're proposing no funds from the DAO. So there I guess initially wouldn't be that kind of automatic retesting or reevaluation phase. So I think that could be some valuable feedback to just say, hey, let's either put this up to vote or have a community report or do something 6 months out to as a retrospective.
Totally. I mean, I could see a world where if we have to provide, part of what we offered and are committed to is providing financial reports. And so maybe instead of, because we're not asking for money, which by the way, I am glad to ask for money and take money if that helps things slide through. But what we could still do is on that same cadence that everybody else is being held to, we could provide our financial reports. And that can be the part where we have the discussion about, hey, is this working? Is this isn't working? We need, instead of being a 50-50 split on profits, we now want to go to a per unit sort of spiff off of every item sold and renegotiate the terms. Absolutely.
Hey, can I just jump in? Maybe just rent, maybe we can just come up with a nice fixed rate, make it easy for everybody there's nothing wrong with having an official shop, right? But it seems like if we can't grant you an exclusive license, much less enforce one, then that also means that this is much less of a symbiotic relationship and more of just a straight up licensing deal. Like if we were a sports league and someone wanted to be our official shop, they would just pay us for that. And then we would just keep an eye to make sure there were no egregious missteps on their part, right? So this all just seems like it's going to take a lot of oversight, and that also it's perhaps not appropriate to have super close relationships anyway, just from an IP perspective. So I don't know. That's just, I don't get what the value add in both directions is going to be, because maybe I'll be wrong, hopefully, knock on wood, that this will financially be material to Maker, but it's considering that we're currently making like 290,000 DAI a day right now in profits. I have a hard time seeing how this is going to, on a financial level, really matter to us. So we're in a situation where I think there's nothing wrong with us having some kind of relationship, and licensing our basically our web address assets. But at the same time, like, there's really nothing in it for us other than like some cold hard cash, and just the easiest thing to do would just, like we're a landlord, right? That would be the easiest thing to do, I think, right? And then if you're super successful, more power to you, you'll have more profits. And if you're not, it really protects us from fluctuations in revenue, as well as it really, that would really ensure that we have minimal like liability exposure beyond just reputational risk. Anyway, that's my thought for now.
Well, it's a good thought, and I guess from and a good idea. So Mike and I will obviously circle back and discuss this afterward, but I guess from the community, there needs to be an agreement of what that URL is worth in terms of rent.
And also who controls that,
yeah,
and who makes the money off of it. And I still stand by an interest in understanding like what is and what is not a threshold for being a core unit. If it's just you have friends who can vote you in, that feels lame, said with respect.
So I think the idea of the core unit originally was, you have some contributors that do something for MakerDAO, and you want to structure this group of contributors in a way that is scalable. So the people inside this core unit work, and they are coordinated by this facilitator who is in charge of communicating with governance. So I think that's the general idea. Is not so everybody's free to do whatever they want in the ecosystem of Ethereum, of DeFi, of MakerDAO. So this core unit idea was basically to structure some sort of divisions or groups of people working in a scalable way. So it's not a partnership, basically. It's a way to sort of have employees in a sense, not technically employees, but that's basically what we're trying to mimic in a distributed way.
And to add on the paying part, I think Planfuism answered in the forum, but basically we have this surplus buffer where you can directly send money there, and that's the protocol receiving it directly, or potentially it could be sent to the, I can't remember the name of the multisig, but there's this multisig being used by different core units as an interim step between funds that go from the DAO to potentially the core units. So that would be a potential way of depositing any kind of money to the protocol.
Yeah,
Okay,
just to
Long
be
is
clear,
saying
yeah,
you
it's what I
can
was saying.
send.
You can't send ERC20 directly to the surplus buffer, so don't try and do that because it'll just disappear. But yeah, it's fine. We can, once we get to that point, we can figure out like the kind of way that makes the most sense to get it back into the protocol or whatever.
I want to loop back around to the idea of the marketing. Is there going to be like a marketing core unit? I guess there is none right now. I mean, I thought maybe Coulter would be like responsible for that, like going forward. I guess it's just touched on before, but how like coordination with like the marketing team? Like, why would the marketing team necessarily be like the core unit versus this could maybe be like a subsidiary of the marketing team? Not exactly sure, right? I do like the idea of this being a core unit, but maybe this would be a subdivision of what marketing is and be rather than looking for like a rent relationship. I think it's fine, and it could be like a future-proofing type of idea to like have like a renting relationship for doing. But I think like having an official team behind it is better.
I believe there is a proposal in for a marketing core unit also. So, I mean, there's, I think what's cool is, and I don't know when, if I'm assuming this ends at the top of the hour, like my big takeaway would be Coulter and I have value to, we believe we have value to offer. We are excited to contribute. This is the model we think works, but we're really happy to be flexible inside of whatever rules are set up or determined. To me, it feels like the crux of the issue is still like what does and doesn't constitute a core unit. And so that's really kind of what's here. I think there's some awesome feedback around like rethinking the way that we structure the finances of the deal and how we can contribute back, whether it's off of revenue or a splitting of profits, et cetera. Totally, we will take another crack at that. Absolutely take a look at giving, proposing some stake in equity. But really open to working with the community in the group. This is the most engagement we've gotten on the topic. If I'm honest, maybe that's a wonderful indicator of how important this is or not to people based on the comments we were seeing. But at the end of the day, we think there's an opportunity to create some really killer personal level branding and engagement with folks through a channel that we know works and that we're really good at. And would like to see how we can contribute. So.
Totally. So Mike and Coulter, where can people find you if they want to give you feedback or get in touch with you?
At
What's
Coulter on Rocket and at Mike P on Rocket.
Yep. And then we're in the forum as well. I mean, our names are all over, obviously, so you can also message us there.
Anything else that we didn't mention that you would like to?
So I guess I don't actually know, what do you do now? Like it just goes into vote or not? Like we can get our whales in and then it doesn't even matter. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, governance has absolute power over everything else, right? It's anonymous, so it's hard to tell up to which point they are listening to these calls or not. So
okay. Yeah.
yeah, it'll go through the governance cycle. It'll either pass, which is fine. If it doesn't pass, then you can always repropose something else, or kind of make adjustments, or kind of talk to people in the community to figure out
Cool.
How you should adjust.
Very cool. Well, thanks for the time, you guys. Again, find us on Rocket or in the forum if you want to chat.
Right. Thank you guys for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a nice one.
Bye.